Ah, canon. No, not that canon. Not that one either. I'm talking about the canon that determines which facts and events have an actual impact from an in-universe viewpoint. It's defined as a set of criteria or a standard of judgment originating from the Greek canon, meaning rule. So today, we're going to be talking about the rules that govern what is part of the whole. In this case, the whole of Final Fantasy XIV. This is less a lore video and more a video on a critical component of the lore diving process, determining what information is relevant to lore and what isn't. So, what do we consider to be canon? Well, we have the game itself and all texts and events contained within. I think everyone can agree on this, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. If it happens in game, regardless of how ridiculous or nonsensical, it's primary canon. After all, this whole universe exists around the game, so it would be silly not to consider it. Additionally, the development team has taken great care to ensure that most of the pieces fit together pretty well. Not perfectly, but pretty well. There are, of course, instances where the information in-game needs to be changed or brushed with the retroactive continuity brush, or retconning. This is where something that was in the game at one point is either no longer in the game or changed to be something else. My favorite example was that from ARR until 4.55, Umbral meant darkness and Astral meant light. Our understanding of those two forces changed after we visited the first, and was thus retconned. But until that point, it's canon that we believe those forces to be darkness and light. This is one of the clever ways the game maintains its narrative cohesion. By presenting the facts of the game as bound by the limits of knowledge within the game's universe, it can explain away large shifts, such as rewriting the laws of ether to reflect thermodynamics, as we just learned something new. In addition to the game, items that are designed to have originated within the game universe, such as the Encyclopedia Eorzea books, are also considered primary canon. Chronicles of Light also are events that take place within the game universe, along with the Tales from compilation on the Final Fantasy XIV website. Now that that's established, we go to secondary canon. This includes interviews, statements, and announcements pertaining to the game by the development team. Now, I can hear you already. But they make the game. Shouldn't what they say about the game be canon as well? Well, not necessarily. You see, even the work of a single person can be interpreted in a number of different ways that are different from what the original author intended. I say author, despite the work being of any media, really. Once completed, a work stands apart from its creator. Usually, this isn't an issue. The development team can often expand or elaborate on aspects of the game that add to them. Like when Yoshida dropped at his Tokyo keynote that the Sundering happened 12,000 years in the past by the source's calendar. These are cases that it fills in the gaps in the game's canon and can be included. The issue with this canon is that occasionally this kind of information conflicts with what's established in the game. But what if that's not how it was intended by the director? What if it passed through the filter of the localization team and what emerged was something slightly different? In that case, the text of the game still supersedes the intent of the creator, because again, the work itself stands apart from its creator, regardless of their original intent. Tertiary canon is hardly worth mentioning since in regards to the lore and structure of the game universe, it's largely irrelevant. But I will anyway, since there are some rare occasions where it can make it into the game universe. This can also include official releases such as the Omega Smart Home unit. While this is clearly intended as a joke, it still contains elements that could pertain to the in-game universe. After all, Omega can travel the interdimensional rift, so who's to say that it couldn't come to our world and masquerade as a smart home device? But that happening doesn't really affect the universe of 14, and as far as I'm aware, I haven't heard of any Omega units going missing, so this can easily be discarded. Also in this category are what we would call Fannin or Fan Canon. These are things that, while rooted in the game universe, are not applicable to the game as a whole. For example, someone roleplays taking their adventure on an epic journey with their friends. The things that occur during that journey may be canon to that character, but another player wouldn't recognize those events as part of the whole universe outside of adventurers doing things, so it wouldn't be considered as part of canon. Similarly, interpretations of canon that cannot be verified would fall into this category. Things such as ships or relationships would also fall into this category. Blatant misinterpretations of events that are not open to speculation, such as Xenos never died or Namazu exists, or the state of characters or an area that have been clearly established. This would fall under speculation, but wouldn't be considered canonical. But let's be real, who doesn't love a good speculation video? I, for one, love the speculation that the churning mists used to be part of Elpis. However, relationships such as Aymeric being Thornton's son, or Fortunal and Emeliance being a couple, are confirmed within the bounds of the game and would be primary canon. But what happens when two primary sources disagree with each other? For example, the first Encyclopedia Eorzea and the game itself come to odds at various points, from the categorization of Aether to the dates of Gridania's important events to Gaelicats being called Voidsent. But the devs cleverly left an opening. See, the Encyclopedias, while being primary sources, are claimed to be written by people in-game. This makes them subject to the knowledge and limitations those scholars in-game possessed at the time. It's like if you were to read a book on astronomy from the 1600s today. It would tell you that the sun revolves around the Earth and the stars are all angels and mean every word. That's right, reality gets retconned too. Those encyclopedias are written by Charlayan scholars apparently, so they could put anything in there, anything at all, and we would take it as truth, because we are but the ignorant masses. Actually, we probably don't know how to read, so it's even worse, because now we've got some Yahoo reading their interpretation of what some Charlayan scholar wrote, or as I like to call it,
Charlayan propaganda.
This is kind of my catch-all for the in-universe understanding of our in-game world at large, since so much of our understanding of the world comes from Charlayan research and the scraps of knowledge they deign to bestow upon the peasantry living in Eorzea. That's us, by the way. At least now that their deep, dark, evil plan to save humanity is out in the open, maybe they can stop hoarding all their knowledge and help the world actually progress and be a decent place to live. But enough about them. This is about what we regard to be relevant to lore, and what we discard when diving into the weeds. So in regards to primary canon, what we experience and learn for ourselves would supersede that which we are told by others. This is a subsection of primary and secondary canon. The flip of Umbral and Astral and Shadowbringers is a perfect example of this, as we learned that the knowledge we had held as canonical fact was flawed. So how do we reconcile events that used to be part of the game that have been retconned or removed? Well, in this case, those events would either be ejected if replaced with new events, or if just removed and not replaced, would move to secondary canon. This is the case with much of 1.0, though a lot of it still remains canonical even now. ARR also had some things condensed or removed with the quest pruning of the patch quests, though some still exist as side quests, in which case they are still considered primary canon. So I hope this has provided some insight into how we approach canon at Lorelines, and why just because something is said in an interview doesn't necessarily make it canonical fact. Once published, a work stands on its own, regardless of the intent of its original creator. So while a creator may interpret their work in a certain way, if the work itself disagrees with the creator's interpretation, then the work will always take precedence. Additionally, conjecture drawn from the work, but unsubstantiated in the work, would fall into the realm of speculation. We deal with both here at Lorelines, and very much like to differentiate between the two. So I hope you've enjoyed this foray into how we break down canon, and hope you please look forward to our next video. How do you categorize canon? What do you consider to be relevant and not relevant? Let us know in the comments.